Welcome to the Tech Arena Great Debate. My name's Allison Klein, and I am so delighted to be joined by three women who have, for a very long time, been very powerful in charting the future of the data center. We've got Stephanie Schmidt with Flex, Jen Hufstetler from HPI, and Rebecca Weekly from Geico with us. Welcome, ladies. How are you doing?
Thanks for
Good.
having us.
Thank you.
Why don't we just go through a quick round of introductions so that everyone understands the relative roles that you're playing in your companies and your experience in the data center. Rebecca, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I run infrastructure for Geico, which means our private and public cloud footprint. Uh, that includes our data centers, our edge facilities, everything that we support for our franchisee sites, all the way through to all of our different SaaS and PaaS layers within the data center space. Um, in terms of previous lives, I also ran infrastructure for Cloudflare, and before that, obviously worked very closely in the community with OCP when I was so lots of experience in running the more physical side of operations on top of our data center spaces.
That's awesome. Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. I am the new Chief Sustainability Officer at HP Inc., and I'm only 3 weeks new, and looking forward to how we're going to be able to use AI to help improve the products that we have. In my past life is at Intel, where I looked after product sustainability across the company, really helped to lead and guide the technical strategy inside the data center where we had a work stream on sustainability. So I've got probably a 20-year tenure in the data center, from looking after all the products all the way through to that sustainability strategy at the end.
And Stephanie.
Thank you. Stephanie Schmidt. I'm Vice President of Strategy at Flex. Also new to the role. I've been at Flex for about 2 months. And I drive strategy for our cloud, enterprise, and communications business unit. Prior to that, I was about 18 years at Intel, 10 years in our manufacturing, and the rest in data center, driving strategy, technology strategy, sustainability, and that kind of work. Thank you.
I was so excited about this discussion because of the three positions in the market that you are all sitting in today, and then also just the wealth of history that you have on the topic of today around the data center. And I know that you all are very familiar with the first topic, and we've talked about it at length, but let's just set the scene. There's an insatiable demand for AI. We've been on the path of AI for a very long time. I know the last time, Rebecca, you were on my podcast, you spoke at length about how AI is actually broadly proliferated into the data center and into the applications that run businesses today. But obviously, Gen AI is introducing a new chapter. I'll open up a question for all three of you. How do you see the opportunity of AI to fuel your business and open opportunities for industry at large? And Stephanie, why don't we just start with you?
Sure. I think in the manufacturing space, Gen AI opens up a lot of advancements, areas such as quality inspection, where you can have some video processing for advanced defect detection, areas like supply chain for supply chain optimization when you're looking at demand forecasting and modeling, smart manufacturing where we have AI infused into sensors and devices. And then also for decision making and data analytics, where we can leverage the capability for faster time to insight, modeling scenarios. And I think broader from an industry perspective, we're seeing efficiencies for in productivity and cost. It's definitely driving competitive differentiation and advantages. And I think, more broadly, I think industry is seeing benefits with Gen AI around customer experience, innovation, Robotics as well is poised for an inflection point as well. Edge AI helping with real-time decision making. So just some initial thoughts on where we're seeing benefits and advantages.
Rebecca, if we look into the heart of an insurance company, and you have such a strong purview in that field, where do you see AI today, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, I would say I want to distinguish between Gen AI, like the generative side, and regular old supervised, unsupervised AI modeling, machine learning. These are domain spaces where, again, we've been using this for as long as possible for making sure we've got the best data analytics in space. And as a regulated industry, we always want to make sure that we can reason and have full accuracy in what we're modeling to any compliance agency, anyone that we're partnering with. So that is critical to be able to rationalize about it, and there can be no hallucination in that domain, right? We have to be able to defend every single price that we give and why and how it relates to the risks in ways that humans can rationalize. And that's where unsupervised learning models and generative AI can be, actually, I would say, net detrimental to the company and its goals in supporting all of our 25 million customers in having the best experience with an insurance agency. So that's the core business. And I don't see that changing with generative AI. I see the productivity of the humans who support these efforts being assisted with generative AI, whether that's helping our agents move even faster with agentic AI that is helping them see the insights and opportunities to support our customers better, faster, stronger, or if it's internal work, right, to help us write code faster, identify issues with systems more quickly, do failure domain analysis, do analysis associated with how we do failover between sites. There's so many areas where being able to take a set of rules and apply them in a systematic fashion at a rate that is faster than a human could infer, and use the automation we've already written to be able to execute the right patterns of behavior quickly, so that humans can sleep at night and not be on call all the time, so that all of these things are ways that we increase the productivity and experience of our people through AI. And I think for me, that's the most exciting domain, because, if you're just looking at a server, there's 10 to the 21st knobs you could turn to improve the experience of that one server, right? That's just kernel. That's just how we configure the fans. That's how there's so many domains just on one server. And now think about the thousands that are running across the 400, whatever sites that we're managing. There are so many ways we can improve users' experience that are beyond what a single human could keep in their brain, but absolutely can be modeled through AI. So that's where I get most excited, but that's because I'm a hardware nerd. So,
Jen, I know that you have spent a lot of time of late talking to enterprises from across different domains about how they're using this powerful technology. What's your take? And do you see differentiation in different markets?
Absolutely. There's differentiation across the markets. I think everybody is at a different stage of their digital transformation and where they're at in terms of the readiness to deploy AI even at scale, just plain old fashioned AI, as Rebecca was talking about, versus generative AI. I think a lot of companies are trying to find that first use case that's going to be most effective for their industry. In pharmaceuticals, right? They're really looking at how it's going to help them discover new molecules that will help to provide better therapies more quickly. In the energy space, I spent a lot of time in the last few years talking to energy utilities and folks from the governments around the world about this moment, because the energy is so intense, and how they can use AI in order to better manage their grids, keep the lights on for all of us. I think that's like one of the things we never wake up and say, thank you, utility company, my lights are on today. We only think about it when the worst has happened. And so I think a lot of those different utilities around the globe are deploying ever more capabilities to build a more secure and a more resilient grid, so that all of us, can have the energy we need for our different worlds. I'm trying to think of a third one that would be really representative. Um, in our space, we're trying to think about, in collaboration, at least at HPI, with partners around the globe, what the future of work looks like, and how does generative AI improve that worker productivity? How are we thinking about those models moving from cloud to our devices? And not only improving that productivity, improving the employee experience. A recent study that we just had demonstrated that only 28% of workers are satisfied with their work experience. And so, we really believe that, understanding those unmet needs of the customer, the ambitions that they have to continue to grow and get fulfillment out of their work and in their personal lives, is something that we uniquely can bring the power of these capabilities from the data center and the AI that's being deployed there down to the device and the experience of the worker in any industry.
Now, we're at a very interesting moment in time. We are about to embark on the second half of this decade. The first half obviously brought incredible moments to us in terms of an environment that was very unique from what has come before. I think the question that I have for you is, a lot of folks are saying 2025 is going to be the year that Gen AI is adopted by enterprise en masse. Rebecca, you raised some concerns around hallucinations and other challenges with maybe moving too fast with generative AI. How do we see that this is going to roll out? I don't know if you want to start us off, Rebecca.
I think you have probably seen most companies over the last, let's say, 2.5 years, started creating a hit list of interesting use cases, right? They went to all their different stakeholders, if they're inclusive, which I hope they are, and tried to collect the kind of list that Jen and Steph spoke through, right? We want to get to a place where we understand what our users want, whether that's a co-pilot kind of an interface, whether that's something that is more interactive to support end users in customer support through a call center kind of experience. So all of that, we have those lists. And most of us probably spent the last year and a half doing POCs on that list and trying to see what the actual costs of it were and what we actually got out of the effort. Did we have a better experience? Did our NPS scores change? Was there some sort of A/B testing, blue-green testing to really try and understand, did we see what we thought we did? Every company is going to be different in terms of what their efficacy and outcomes are. I won't say specifically what our metrics were, but I think the hype was a wee bit bigger than the actual outcomes. And that is always the case. No one should be surprised. So our goal in the next year is to find the ones, and have found, I think, the ones that we want to really invest in and go well forward to deliver the outcomes that we were able to assess. Different people are on different places in that curve. I think most people who went too fast on generative AI spent a lot of money and didn't get a lot of good results. So I hope most people took the MVP, POC kind of approach to see what was the right choice for them, and then start rolling out in a more systematic fashion. That's and if not, there's probably a lot of CFOs having some very interesting conversations with their teams right now to make sure that they get to that place, because paying for hype is not why or how we hold ourselves accountable to a street.
That was very pragmatic of you, Rebecca. And,
Always.
in fact, I recently published my predictions for 2025, and one of the predictions I came out with is that there will be the first major company crisis brought forward based on the deployment of generative AI in 2025. So I think my thinking is somewhere around where yours is. I would love to hear what Jen and Stephanie have to say about this. What do you think, ladies? Anyone want to start?
Sure, I can start. I agree with Rebecca. We've really been in the learning POC phase, and 2025 and beyond, we're really thinking about production and scale. And some interesting maybe data and numbers. We're seeing continued investment in the space. Um, Deloitte said that 2/3 of organizations are continuing their investments, and of those, 42% really are seeing benefits in terms of efficiency and productivity. And McKinsey really estimates a staggering number of $4.4 trillion added in terms of incremental revenue to the economy. So that's incredible. So definitely not seeing a slowdown, and 2025 will continue to see, that continued investment, that continued growth. We're already seeing certain areas where Gen AI is disrupting and producing changes, advancements. And we spoke to some of those in the areas of automation and efficiency, customer experience, innovation and productivity, decision-making. And then, I think as with all technology inflection points, innovation, there's challenges, right? And some of those challenges, Rebecca spoke really well to them in terms of data quality and management, risks and governance, and then also talent and training, right? I think that's an area that we're doubling down on right now, specifically around, okay, we've got some great tools out there. How do we upskill, and how do we bring everyone along and bring everyone up? So just some initial thoughts there.
Jen, I think we've just heard the bull enter the ring for being a bullish attitude about this. A little bit of contrast with Rebecca. Where do you weigh in?
Your prediction that we're going to have our first major event, I'm just reflecting on that. I think that's really astounding. I think we definitely are in a moment that could happen, but we've got so much change happening globally right now.
Mm-hmm.
All of the tensions, the polarization across the economy, in each and every economy around the globe. I think I am definitely a little more bullish on opportunities, because in the use cases already discussed, I think a lot of companies are making progress in those domains and deploying AI, helping their sales teams be more successful, like not doing the work that isn't customer facing. That's being removed, that's being streamlined. They're able to use their precious time, spend it with customers, better understand their needs, and to ensure that they're able to work and close those deals. I think we're seeing, even in communications internally in organizations, so many are using these techniques for productivity, summarization, ideation, right? Giving them a starting point. I think you're just going to see more and more use of that, and more industries embracing those first use cases. Now, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of additional work to do, but I think we're really going to see the benefits of these initial POCs, this initial hype cycle, really come to bear. Certainly in the supply chain planning, there are so many deployments of AI and Gen AI today that it's just going to get better and better.
I think that I need to back up my statement a little bit. I also am very bullish about Gen AI. I think that if you look back in time, you could say that there were major brand moments with the adoption of cloud computing too, and we saw where that went. So I think it just is reflective of the power of the technology, and folks wanting to take advantage of it. So I think that we could state that this is a continued evolution. And I think Stephanie threw out some amazing figures about economic growth that will spur from this. And my question to y'all, because we all share a hardware background, is where in the world is this going to evolve in the compute landscape? Is it going to stay in data centers? Is it going to move to the devices that you were talking about, Jen? What will 25 and 26 look like in terms of the application of AI from data center to edge? Jen, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. A lot of the use cases are, they're the end user is engaging with this, right? Even if it's currently a cloud application. I think as we move forward, you're going to see more advances at the device level and using AI to improve the experience of that user at the edge. I'll just give one example from our print space. Not an area you typically think about technology or AI, but the team is investing there because, again, our mission is to create and define the future of work. When they put forth this new feature called Print Scan AI, it's actually reducing, the waste that happens when you need to print something by 70% by really understanding your document, fitting it in the most readable way onto that page. So this is good for the planet. It's good for the frustration of the employee. And I use that as one tiny example of we now have these tools and technologies, and you're getting every product team around the world in whatever industry they're in, really thinking about what are those user pain points? How could we use AI to improve that user experience? And this is just like one tiny tip of the spear that we're going to see. And I think over time, you're going to see much more personalization of the models. And that's, moving to your device, you'll be able to be more efficient in terms of, what you're able to run right here on your device, wherever you are, not relying always on that cloud computing, that latency that you're experiencing.
Rebecca and Stephanie, what are your views on this one?
So when I think about what goes on device versus what we might use in a cloud space, usually it comes down to privacy, right? Privacy and bias. So your cell phone, your watch, is likely an area where your data, your singular data is available. And it's an area where then we can avoid maximization or minimization of the diversity of your individual information. So the way that, AI works, right? It takes a huge amount of data and makes recommendations based on what it's seen many, 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 many times. Your data may be very different, and what's right for you from a fitness tracker or a sleep data set, or even your, recommendations for natural language processing to fill in what you would normally say is very different depending on the industry you work in, the people you chat with all the time, your, language of origin, when we use a generalized model, defaults to majority numbers. When we look at the inference of using that model within a domain space that is your data set, you're going to get much more personalized results. So I think device-based inference or edge-based inference is just an opportunity for things to be more specialized to the individual in ways that are very hard for the large generic models to give. And that is an area where I think a lot of individuals will find a lot more value in the experience of AI. I think it also gives us a lot of interesting opportunities to control our data and to have a better privacy footprint if we opt into those things. I certainly think we've seen that in data sets across the world. We've seen that in how people are creating policies around cookies and reselling of user information. The generalized data sets are worse than they used to be. And that is because people are waking up to the fact that maybe having that social media account and giving all of your information away for free has an impact to you. That you can't go to any website ever and not see the shoes you searched for when you were looking at X, Y, or Z on the weekend, or whatever is a
That's funny. I was just talking about that very use case with some friends last night at dinner. I don't want to click on that dress because I may see it for the next 9
for
months.
the rest of the yeah, exactly. And we don't want to be in that space. That in some sense ruins the entire experience of how you want to show up at work, how you want, If you hand your phone to your child, you may not want them to see what you were searching for, whatever the reasons are. You want to be able to have a more personalized experience. And I think we have an opportunity through device-based modeling, through inferring from your specific data sets and retraining in more effective fashions to honor that privacy with an edge footprint.
Stephanie, Rebecca, and Jen really just painted a wonderful picture of the edge, but I know that you and the Flex team work a lot with the world's data center leaders in delivering the manufacturing capability that they need. What do you see as the future of data center centric AI moving into 2025?
Yeah, I think of it as a maturity curve. And I think Rebecca raised some really good points on privacy. I do think, and I think there's also model optimization, model complexity, and I do think that there's a lot of work and innovation in those spaces where we're looking to solve some of those challenges and coming up with innovative solutions. So I think, over time, we're going to see a diffusion more and more across cloud edge, across that continuum. So I look at it maybe as a phased approach, maybe in the near term, 25 to 27. We're seeing a lot of the frontier models, those large language models happening in the cloud, enterprises adopting hybrid cloud strategies, further deployments of heterogeneous architectures and complexity in that space, moving to more, in the midterm, the 28 to 2030, we're going to start seeing more and more of those models being able to be run at the edge, the growth of the edge computing, the build out of the cloud edge continuum, and then longer term, right, we're going to see more of an organic expansion and distributed AI, where we'll have running across multiple nodes with edge devices connected to cloud data centers, and I think it's going to be more and more organic and more pervasive. So I see it as kind of just a maturation curve that we've seen across many technology inflection points across the years.
Now, thank you. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. If we don't collectively innovate, compute platforms are basically going to consume all of the energy on the planet to deliver to this grand vision. So, what is the future of efficiency in compute? What is the future of delivering more sustainably? And do you feel that the industry is taking this challenge as seriously as it needs to? Or are we just going to start building more nuclear power plants? Jen, why don't you kick this one off?
Inherent in your question, Allison, that building more nuclear power plants is a bad thing.
I know.
So I may not agree with that statement since we're having the debate. Are the largest cloud providers that are deploying the most, compute energy intensive solutions at scale, they are taking this seriously. Like, I actually think they alone they're adding more clean energy than the rest of the industries combined, because it's in their best interest. In a lot of cases, it's now more cost effective, and they're pushing the utilities and the overall energy industry in every market around the globe to bring renewable energy to bear. And everyone is coming to the call, right? We've got the capital markets that are coming in and they're willing to help fund this clean energy transition. You've got real estate developers bringing the land to help this data center build out for these AI factories that we're going to need around the globe. So I actually do think there is a lot of positive news from the push and the investment that the entire industry is making globally. I also think we tend to underestimate the innovation and efficiency that has yet to be invented. And so one tiny fact I'll share is that, Intel was delivering the majority of the data center compute in 2010 to 2020. Just the chip innovations alone, we've estimated, accounted for 1,000 terawatt hours saved on the planet. So just think about that. Chip innovation, data center energy efficiency. Like if you had never innovated beyond a 2010 chip, I think it was Sandy Bridge, Allison, for those keeping score.
That was a good vintage. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Mhm.
But then there was innovation in the software layers as well. We had virtualization, we had containers, so much more innovation there. On top of that, these large scale providers, and Google's got a very public, simple statement around they were able to save, I think it was 40% in by deploying machine learning to understand their cooling, which consumes a huge amount of energy for a data center today. And they were able to reduce that energy consumption by up to 40% just by focusing on the hotspot. So that's an example of what's happened in the last decade, decade and a half. And there's new techniques coming to bear, new data types, new algorithms, and that's just on the horizon, things that have been published to date, more efficient hardware types, right? New technologies that even aren't silicon. There are so many things in the hopper that we see today, and that's just what we can see. So I'm a tech optimist. Obviously, we wouldn't be in this industry if we weren't. But just think about now when AI can help to place the blocks on a chip because it's able to do it in the most energy efficient way. When it's able to optimize the code, there's startups today that can reduce the energy consumption of any of your software at your companies today by 20% just by reviewing the code and saying, oh, replace this code with this more energy efficient, more cycle efficient code.
Amazing.
I know it is. So I'm not worried. I think, this moment we're going through a spike, right? But this climb in energy consumption, I don't think it's going to stay at the slope that it is today. And I think that this moment is actually helping us to accelerate the clean energy transition.
Now, use the figure 1,000 terawatt hours. That is where we're forecast to consume on an annual basis by 2030. Stephanie, you guys know a lot about power and cooling technologies at Flex. What are you seeing on the landscape, and what can we do to help manage and deliver power more efficiently into that environment?
Absolutely. I think, we're really, when we think of compute platforms and energy consumption, scaling sustainably, right, is top of mind. And it's not just about energy efficient hardware, it's hardware and software co-optimized for energy efficiency. It's optimizations at the system level, but then looking further up at the rack, at the data center and infrastructure level, and looking for really those areas where we can be more efficient, optimize, really taking a much broader view. And we're seeing that play out in the market with more and more integrated designs being productized and available to drive the kind of benefits that we want to see. Also, the design point has shifted, whereas maybe in the past we might be optimizing for maximum performance. Now, one of the key design criteria is designing for performance per watt, right? And really taking into consideration the power component and looking at that at a much more holistic view, taking into account the entire system. And I think it's forcing us also to take a look at the full product life cycle. And things like, how do we reduce, reuse, recycle, and putting in places product and services to help in those areas. So I think, very similar to what Jen was saying, we keep innovating and improving in these areas, and we will solve this challenge absolutely. And I think it's an area of a lot of innovation and an opportunity for a lot of growth, and it's a great business opportunity.
That's great. Now, Rebecca, you have to actually deploy this stuff. So tell me, and I know that you went through a massive transformation at Geico. You leveraged a lot of open hardware to deliver more efficiency to the environments. Tell me what you did, and do you feel like the industry is on track with where we need to be?
So I think actually, first of all, I love that we sort of started with this where are we going from even the device level using AI to lay it out more efficiently, and how can we think about it from a systematic perspective? I'm going to double down on what Stephanie just mentioned in terms of the infrastructure itself. And I think when we read these papers from Google or Amazon, you see a world where they're at 60 to 80% utilization, and they've optimized, their cooling solutions, and they've optimized elements of load balancing, and they've right-sized their equipment with lots of data across so many different workloads. That is not the state of the enterprise. So 40 to 50% of the power that is in co-location facilities today, serving the long tail of the market, is stranded power. It's not utilized. That's because the software is not optimal. That is because the equipment is not right-sized. That is because there is no methodology for load balancing. It is because we haven't taken advantage of some of the very basic things that had to happen, started happening 15 years ago for people on the leading bleeding edge of scale. And when scale hasn't been the problem, and your efficiency goals have been associated with an IT refresh cycle, or an opportunity to go to the public cloud where you can see load be nearly flat, but your prices increased by at least 10% year over year, no matter what, that creates a very strong disincentive to really get to the heart of the problem, right? You just don't have the right data to understand what is causing stranded power, to understand how you could right-size your equipment. Cloud gives you no data on that, right? You can get lots of information on how your VM or your container is operating, but not a system, not the data center itself, not the power capacity within it. So I think we've got a problem of obfuscation in a domain that's been considered commodity. Now, the reason why I'm always super excited about these things is that when we actually start to have constraints is when engineers do cool things. And the constraints right now, and maybe it's not just engineers, right? It's also capitalists. Like when we think about dollars and dollars saved, there's a direct correlation in what is best for the world, what is best for our businesses, and what is best in a workload performance power utilization mindset, right? What's good for electrons is also good for our bottom lines. This is an equation I would bet on every single day. And that's exactly what Jen was talking about. There's, for us, within my infrastructure landscape, a lot of my goals have not been just because it's cool and nifty and neato and innovative. It's quite literally because I want to free up capital to invest in AI, to invest in transforming our business. But if we don't go and look at our load balancing, our utilization, our stranded power capacity, right-sizing our equipment, making sure we have the best path for egress, et cetera, right? We didn't even talk about the network, and the network is a huge opportunity for power reduction. So those require good monitoring. Once you start getting that instrumentation in place and you start to tackle those problems from software, system, location, egress, that is where we get to a place where we can start to really reduce our energy footprint, be more sustainable, be more effective in our cost to serve, and then spend that money, reinvest that money in the domains that make our people more efficient, our businesses more efficient, et cetera. So this is actually like what the journey I'm on is just about making sure we are in fight and wait, right? We're ready to go. We're ready to take it down so that we can enable the growth our customers need from us, want from us. It's all about service efficiency and a positive customer experience. That's what any enterprise is looking to deliver. And I guarantee you, if 50% of your data center capacity from a power perspective, and probably closer to 70% from a compute perspective, is sitting around idle, you are not efficient. You are not at fighting weight. And that's like every enterprise probably out there. So I think there's so much that is low-hanging fruit to improve when we're talking about 50% wasted capacity and power before we need to really think through nuclear power and all the other ways in which, and I'm also a huge fan of nuclear power, all the ways in which we could be more sustainable as an ecosystem and generation. We should think about those things now because the lead time is so long for new utilities to come online. But for enterprise, we need to start by getting in fighting weight.
I love that. I was so excited for this conversation, and the three of you did not disappoint. I would have you back for another discussion anytime you want to come. One final question to y'all. I know that the audience likely also wants to follow along with you. Where can they find you and engage? Stephanie, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think, Rebecca mentioned her participation in the Open Compute Project. I'm also very involved, so you can always find me participating there. Also on LinkedIn, I'm also very active within Data Center Dynamics and their events. And I think, coming together as a community around data center, it's a small world. I think coming together in these debates and discussing some of the pain points and challenges really gets some of those creative juices, the out of box thinking flowing, and that possibility thinking where we can really solve some of the toughest problems. And I think coming to the table with a set of diverse perspectives focused on innovation and growth is really a winning combination. So absolutely, at any point in time, feel free to reach out through some of the social channels, through some of the data center industry consortiums and events. And then, of course, through informal social challenge, social networking avenues, always willing to help support, provide a point of view, sponsor. So yeah, I hopefully I answered the question appropriately.
You absolutely did. Jen, I think 2025 for me will also be a year where I'm seeing where you go personally with your new career and driving the impact that you're going to at HP Inc. Congratulations for that. Why don't you share where folks can connect with you when you're not off saving the planet?
Yeah, I think very similarly, professionally, LinkedIn is a place of engagement on these topics, and there's various industry events um, and consortia. So I've moved out of the OCP realm and those data center specific ones, but other places where we're focused on, building a sustainable and a just future for our planet. Things like the Responsible Business Alliance, other sustainability forums where I'm really able to partner with peers so that we can come together in places like the Semiconductor Climate Consortia and help to lead and drive standards, methodologies about how together this ICT industry is going to lower our footprint for the planet.
Awesome. And Rebecca, I'm still back on thinking about your exercise tracker example and really hoping that mine does not ever get programmed with your data. Um, but not that I've been thinking about something else while you guys are talking. Where can folks engage with you?
I'll just say LinkedIn. I mean, I will post if I'm going somewhere and talking to someone. But generally, that's probably the best spot. We've been actively recruiting. So if you're looking for a job and you're interested in seeing how getting in fighting weight with your fitness tracker on can help you move forward more effectively in an insurance use case, but leveraging infrastructure across the public and private cloud, we are absolutely looking. So come on by, check us out. And then I would just say, in general, I will always have the best place in my heart for our hardware, our systems. So I'll be very involved in OCP always. But I am also involved in the Open Infra organization, YATA, lots of places in the software space since I own hybrid cloud infrastructure. So KubeCon and all of these. So if you are interested in infrastructure as code, I am too. And it's really an awesome space where that's when I was talking about load balancing and monitoring tools. You can't do this job. You can't build the right things if you don't know what it is that you're actually running. So you can't build it and they will come. That's a bad analogy in general.
I have so many more questions, but they'll have to wait for another time. This is another episode of The Great Debate. If those who are listening online like what you heard, please give us a follow, subscribe to our newsletter, and please connect with these experts who have graciously provided their time for this discussion. Thanks so much, ladies.